This is Aaron Murakami with A&P Electronic Media, and today is May 11th, 2017, and it's about 1 o'clock Pacific time. And today on the call we're going to have Mr. Geoffrey Miller from EnergyBat Labs. And if you saw in the newsletters and any of the information on some of the upcoming conference here in July 2017, Energy Science and Technology Conference, he's going to be sharing some information on Joseph Newman's work that not really many people are familiar with. He's one of the few people who's ever gained the trust of Joseph Newman, and back in the 80s he worked with him for about 10 years. And Geoffrey Miller has a pretty impressive lab called EnergyBat Labs. And today on the call, we're going to share a little bit about his background, some of the stuff he's working on in his lab, and some of the exciting things he's going to be releasing here in the near future. So can you hear me okay, Geoffrey?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay. Well, thanks for your time and for being on the call with us today. And, originally I had heard about you, I believe, through Mike Waters and Paul Babcock. And they've both known you for a while. And actually last year when I was looking to get the speakers lined up for last year's conference, we had already kind of been booked up, but you were definitely recommended to me. And then, since the end of last conference, learning more about your work that, you've probably worked with Joseph Newman longer than most people. Which must have been a pretty incredible experience. Do you want to kind of give a little bit about your background and how you got into a lot of the energy technologies and just kind of give people kind of a frame of reference of where you're coming from?
Yeah, so I want to thank you, Aaron, for having me on. I want to thank the audience out there. I'm looking forward to presenting this all in a logical manner and also in a level that people can actually understand, basically like little children, because if you apply that information more on their childlike brain, so to speak, they get it quickly instead of taking it all the way up to the level of engineering and everything like that. So let me fill in the background of what I've done. When I was basically 5, my grandfather was rehabbing houses at the time. And what he did is he introduced me to electricity then. So at 5 and 6 years old, I was actually playing around and redoing light fixtures. We were doing arc lamps. We were doing arc lamps and experiments on this table and everything. I'd be able to go to some of the neatest places that had electronic equipment. So I was born in 1958, so basically I'm almost 60. And so he also took me to the libraries and everything. So I was reading Tesla and everything around 5, 6, 7, 8. And so it was kind of neat to actually learn all that stuff very early. And basically I was hooked at that point. Then what I did is I fast-tracked myself. I used to hang out and take classes at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia. I'm outside of Philadelphia in suburbs. And I also went ahead and would go to the Free Library, and then I would go down to Washington Library, and I would read books down there, and I'd go up to New York and everything. And so all that time I'd be reading and doing my own experiments. I had my own little labs then and everything like that. So I've had little labs leading all the way up to a big lab. And so in between all that time, I've done everything. I've been a blacksmith. I've built race cars. You name it, I've built it. And so now what I've done is I have watched and worked on free energy stuff for probably a good part of about 40 years. And so I've studied everybody else's projects out there. I've duplicated their stuff, and I've taken it further than even the original people. And so what I like to be able to do for the Newman thing is, number one, he's passed on, but I'd like to be able to present his knowledge in a manner so that people can actually understand it and actually really get to go ahead and build it the correct way, because that's what Joseph Newman really would like to have. So that's pretty much where it is. And then what I did in the last year, I had somebody offer to move me out of a small lab and into basically a 5,000 square foot lab that's costing a fortune right now. At the same time, I'm not married. I have a friend that I've been with for about 40 years, and technically, officially, I'm homeless. And so I'm homeless like Eric Dollar. But at the same time, I have a lot of good people around me and everything, and I want to get all this information out in one way, free. Since there's nothing free in the overhead, I would like to have people help me with a donation to keep the lab up. If that goes, then I give out all the information for free. And there is so much I can give out. So at that point, that's where I'm at right now with this new lab and everything. And I have close to 100 different working models here of various levels. I've done all of Bedini's work, all of Joseph Newman's work, all of everybody's work. So the best way to, or ask me any questions, is just ask me direct questions. I'm a very open person, probably more so than most people like me to be open. And so just ask me questions, and I'll answer anything you want to know.
Now, Geoffrey, you want to give what your website address is so that people can go there after the call and kind of see some of the photo gallery of a lot of the machines that you've built? I mean, it's a pretty impressive lab. There's a lot of stuff there.
Oh, yeah. It's called EnergyBat.com. And when you go there, you'll see a home page, about page, a photo gallery page, video gallery page, project page, donation, news, and contact. And when you go to the projects, you'll see them. And this website was all done because what happened is that when I worked on a project called the Pull-Out. The Pull-Out is a mobile utility toolbox that goes in the back of a pickup truck. In 2008, we were supposed to have 14,000 units put into Home Depot and Lowe's, and the investors pulled out when the economy collapsed. So that project is still an ongoing project, but the reason why the whole toolbox project began was so that I could put the Newman Motor in there as a generating unit and have a free energy unit that is portable and can go anywhere. And so if you go to mobileutilitytoolbox.com, you'll see the whole pull-out project, or you can go to the project page in EnergyBat page, and you go to number 6 on the list of projects, and you can hit Mobile Utility Toolbox. So when that went defunct, I lost everything, trucks, everything, my apartment, everything. So I'm living in the graces of somebody's upper room right now. So I really have just reinvented everything, have this new lab. And so, again, it's energybat.com, and if you go there, I'm going to be updating it pretty soon for the conference. So there'll be a whole new group of photos and everything. But you'll get an idea of what I do and what I'm all about by going there.
And that's BAT, B-A-T, just like the black flying mammal bird.
Yeah.
Not bird, but...
Yeah. EnergyBat.com.
Okay, and I'll put a subtitle to that domain name in the video when we put it up on YouTube. And so, one question I had is, or not necessarily a question, but just something to bring up, is that over the years, Joseph Newman is, obviously one of the pioneers in the whole, so-called free energy movement, and has been around for decades. And, he's been in this a long time. A lot of people don't know he's the one that invented those little those weights that go on weightlifting sets, like in the little plastic, the little like red ones or gold ones that are filled with some type of concrete or some type of heavy stuff in there, and he's the one that invented those. And then I guess he sold the patent, and that kind of funded him to be able to get into his energy research. And there's a lot of different things he's been working on over the years, but it seems like he pretty much kind of kept on the same track with his school of thought. And a lot of people that have met Joseph Newman, knows about his work, read his book, has been inspired by his work. And a lot of people have tried to replicate some of his motors. And there's a lot of websites out there and a lot of videos on YouTube and elsewhere online where people are showing the replication. But the reality is based on your experience with Joseph Newman and knowing more about what the inside scoop is, you said out of everything that anybody has ever put on the internet, you've only come across one single video where somebody actually had it right?
Yes.
And yeah, go ahead.
The reason why I mean by right, I mean by the fact that it all has to do with the commutator, the coil, the batteries, and hooking it all up in the proper sequence. And if you have one of the sequences off, it will not work. And the beauty is that once you understand it, then it will be child's play after that. And so that's my ultimate goal, is to be able to provide that. I will be having basically 150 slides there, which will be 98% of all the slides will be pictures. They will go along so that I can actually take everybody through sort of a little tour. But I'd like to just give a background on him in just a real quick sense. When he and I met and everything, it was after about 2 years of me talking to him anyway. And so one of the things that he was more of intellect and everything than a builder. And it's one of the reasons why everything that he ever had was very, very crude. And so what I did is I helped him make it a little bit better. And I went ahead and showed him how to do certain things. Like he would roll his own capacitors and everything, so I got him in touch with a couple capacitor companies where he could actually get the capacitors and everything. And then instead of a big giant round coil with a magnet going in the center, I made it so it could be elongated so you can have more torque and more spin on it. And you'll see all that in the conference pictures and everything. But at the end of the day, what he was more than anything else was that when I went down there and I showed him what I had built and replicated after he put out his book in 1984, he basically sat there and said, we're going to give you a license immediately because you're the only one in the world that's duplicated what I did. And I did it identical to him. Because when I replicate anybody's work, and it's like I replicated John Bedini's work in 1984 when he put out his little book and everything, I do it identically to what they did. And then you don't change anything. Then what you do is you go ahead and build another model with your own interpretations of what you might think it might be better or worse or whatever. But you always keep the original model so that you say that's what the original inventor did. That was his idea as to how he interpreted it. But at the end of the day, whether it's Joe Newman, Bedini, a few other million people I could name, it all comes down to the manipulation of a coil of wire. And when you go back to Tesla, and I've duplicated all Tesla's original works and everything. I duplicated his works out in Colorado Spring and everything like that. And so when you understand back in the day of Tesla's day and everything, and Edison's day, they didn't have any magnets. The only thing they knew how to do was wire. And when you go a little further into the 1800s, they didn't even use copper wire. They used iron wire. And the difference today, what we use, and we're using, as I call it, artificial electricity, because we're using the electric side of things. And way back in the day, it used to be the magnetic side of things and telluric currents and everything out of the ground. And we already have a generator, the Earth. All you have to do is understand how to go ahead and capture the power magnetically. Then when you capture the power magnetically, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to sit there and take the magnetic energy and then turn it back into electrical energy, since we have the motors that run on the electric side, more so than magnetic. Because until we start making magnetic motors that run on magnetic energy, then things will have to change from that point of view. But getting back to Newman, he was a neat guy. When I went down there, we talked. We met at McDonald's, and he, like I am, he ate pretty good food. I eat basically one meal a day, it's beer and McDonald's, one hamburger. That's about it. Because all the money goes into all my research. So food is sort of way in the back spot. So what Joe was we sat down, we had burgers, we were sitting outside of McDonald's and everything, and then we went to his place. And when I got down there, his place, you could tell, was a hubbub of activity. But when I got there, that was when he had just found out basically that the people were not going to put any money into a patent because he wasn't going to get a patent. They wouldn't allow it. And I'll elaborate on that and everything at the convention. Once he saw that he wasn't going to get it, then he was just basically screwed at that point. And so I tried to say, here, let's try and get these motors out there and everything like that. So I don't really want to go into a lot of the stuff that I'm going to go into on the conference and everything about Newman. But he was a neat guy. He was really, really nice. But on the other side of the sword, so to speak, if you pissed him off and everything, then, he was a boxer. He reared his head, and he would tell you so. And one of the main problems was he was more educated than the engineers that would show up there. So when he would sit there and talk about Faraday, Maxwell, people like that, Steinmetz, everybody like that, they had no clue what he was almost talking about because it's not educated. They weren't educated that way. So people are only as good as the knowledge that they're educated with, and I have close to, 30,000 books and everything like that. So if you read, and it's all about how you read and that type of education. And so Joe and I got along tremendously. And so then we worked together and everything all through the years and stuff. And then he was always trying to get financing for his motors and everything. But the problem was he kept on going to motor companies. And I said, look, you're going to have to make this yourself. You got to make one doozy. You have to get somebody to be able to make it. And so, because when you go to the motor companies and you go ahead and you tell them, by the way, we have a good motor, it lasts, they're in the industry of making motors to fail. And you go back playing obsolescence because their whole stockholders and everything in the motor company want to see every year more profit. And they get more profits by selling more motors. So if Joe walks in there and tells you, oh, by the way, I have a motor that works better than your motors, they weren't too receptive. And it's one of the reasons why Rayovac pulled out. Because when Rayovac realized that he could take dead batteries, bring them back to life and more capacity when they did before, they immediately pulled out. And when I came in his lab, he had about 2,000 Rayovac batteries sitting there. And when he ran one of the motors that he had on there, the Rayovac batteries had about a quarter inch of dust all on the whole entire thing. He took one battery that was fairly new. He put it into the series, so he had about 2,000 volts on the motor, and he went ahead and turned it. The motor starts, and then it removes, after about a minute or two, it removed the live battery, and then he re-engaged all the other batteries, and you could see the motor would just take up faster and faster and faster and faster until we got bored looking at it, and then we moved on and showed me more stuff, in his lab and stuff. But we hit it off great, and he was a really, really good guy. And I'll be able to show all the chronological stuff in it. I will also tell you this ahead of time so that you can see it and come to the conference for the people who are still out there and should sign up, is that there were people that stole his technology, and that technology today, believe it or not, there are Newman motors that are being sold under the guise of something else, which I will reveal at the conference, that you can actually go and buy at Sears, on Amazon, and on Walmart, And when I tell you what it is, most people are going to be blown away because they've been buying these things, and they don't know that they're actually Newman motors. And so, any other questions?
Hey, what time frame were you working with Newman? What years?
Basically, it was in the end of the 1980, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, somewhere around there. It's about the 10 years there. And the reason why we started not talking anymore after a while was not because we didn't like each other. it was that I started the pull-out project because I wanted to get that. I figured, hey, reinvent the toolbox, have it go on and off of a pickup truck, any pickup truck in the world, have all your tools pop up at once or have a gang box or whatever. I had to concentrate on that. At the same time, with that whole thing, I hold 12 patents at worldwide and everything. And so we just went our separate ways at that point because he wanted to keep going after the motor companies, and I had given him enough information at that point. And then a lot of people by that point bailed out on Joe. But I can tell you this right now, he kept going. He ended up putting his motors into about an average of about 8 different vehicles. He ended up getting different investors to go ahead and do it. But in the world of investors are very emotionally based, so they want to see something done in a week, you know. And unfortunately, something like what he had, he couldn't be done in a week. So he had everything from putting cars into a Corvette was one of the first ones he did at the Atlanta Superdome. And then a whole bunch of other ones. He put it in a Ford F-150. He put it in some little sort of race cars, you know. So his stuff worked. It was just that nobody ended up actually getting the right pieces to the puzzle to be able to get them hooked up to be able to build this on a production basis. It's just a shame.
Mm-hmm. Now, several months back, somebody was emailing me that a Newman documentary was about to come out, and I think I found it either on Amazon or Netflix, and I watched it. You know, I bought a digital copy of it, and then I emailed everybody out on the mailing list that, you know, this documentary's coming out. I thought it was, you know, had a lot of interesting information, and of course, you know, towards the very, very end of it, made Newman look not so good. But then it just disappeared off that network, and then I found it again on Hulu. I think Hulu is actually where I went and bought the online digital copy, and then they took it off their network. And then I heard that you had actually spoke at the premiere of that documentary at the end. You came out and talked for about an hour. What's your relationship with the documentary and the people who put that thing together?
Okay. The documentary is put together by a guy that's up in New York and everything, and he works for a produce company. And he basically was a person that went to film school, found Joe Newman as an intriguing person to go ahead and make his movie. He went ahead, made the movie and everything, and then he interviewed a whole bunch of people in Joe Newman's previous, his life and everything. And then he was supposed to come to the lab, and what I did is I went to the premiere. We went ahead, we sat in a theater and everything, and afterwards he said, I'm so glad that this whole thing is over with. I never want to make another movie again. And I invited him down. I've got close to about 60 texts of trying to get him here. He just doesn't want to come here. I don't think he has any interest in doing the whole Newman thing anymore. And what's very, very weird is this thing has been trying to pop up on Netflix, on a few different places, and it always gets shut down. And one of the reasons why it gets shut down, I think, is the fact that if and when you ever are able to watch it, if it comes out to the public again, you will find out in the movie that it has a lot of liability culpable to the patent house and things like that. Now, that's the quote paranoia thing. In reality, I think it's all business decision and everything like that, and I'm sure that there's probably squabbling in the background about whose rights this thing is. Now, one of the things is that this guy did this movie as a film type of thing. He wasn't interested to the free energy thing. And like I said to him, I said, you're marketing this thing to all the wrong people. And so he'd be going around the country, and he won all kinds of awards for making the film and documentary from a film point of view. But he never showed it to anybody, and he never released it to the people that would be interested in it from a free energy thing. The movie itself, there's a tremendous background as to who he was, how he was, what type of person and everything. I didn't like the ending of the movie because it didn't put Joe in a light. It didn't have to be done that way. I'm not going to tell what's going on at the end. Is it the bomb at the end, for people not suspecting it. But as an overall movie, tremendously great, because if it wasn't for, I think it's the ABC guy that is the premier guy in that movie that had all the footage of Joe's stuff, nobody today would actually know about the type of footage that was able to be put together for that movie itself. So at the conference, I'll go into more depth as to who the person is. I'll tell you the website. I'll tell you everything about it so people can go and knock on his door and literally say, like, where's this movie?
Okay. So currently, it sounds like there are no plans for this to be released on another, movie network, Amazon or Netflix, Hulu, or.
No idea. I mean, I've never been able to get back in the hold with the guy, and he's never returned. And I have like a couple of friends that know him and everything, and they haven't been able to get anything from him. Yeah. Just basically. Yeah.
I literally sent the announcement out to tens of thousands of people to go watch this Newman documentary on Netflix or whatever it was when I first saw it. And literally the next day it was yanked off of Netflix.
Yeah, it was frank. And the way I got the movie, I walked in the lab, and I'm very attuned like this. I walked in the lab, and something told me, like, go up, turn on the computer, and type in Joseph Newman movie. And I went ahead and did that. It was right there, Amazon. I went ahead, boom, downloaded it, bought it for like $10 or whatever, burned a copy, boom, that's it. And then no more than about 2 hours later, that was it. It was gone.
Right.
And so I have it on my computer because they put a code on it, and actually they download it to your hard drive. It's actually in there. You just have to have the code to pull it out.
Right. So the conference that Geoffrey's coming to is the 2017 Energy Science and Technology Conference, which is coming up in Hayden, Idaho, which is about an hour drive from the Spokane International Airport and from Spokane, Washington. It's just right on the other side of the Idaho border. It's going to be on July 7, 8, and 9, which is the first weekend right after the 4th of July. And if you want to see the website with more details on that, if you're interested in coming, is EnergyScienceConference.com. And out of 100, we limit it to 150 seats because that's about the size of the venue there, but it's small enough to where it's people can spend enough intimate time with the presenters, so it's not too overwhelming with hundreds and hundreds of people. You actually do get quality time with a lot of the presenters who are hanging around, having a beer or something and just sitting around chatting with them, and they're more than happy to share their knowledge and whatever other information with you. If you're there, it's a pretty incredible experience, and definitely the networking is as important as the presentations, and thankfully, a handful of people with some pretty significant projects have actually been funded through a lot of the contacts who've come through the conference. And out of 150 seats, I think about as of last night, 87% are already sold out. So there's only about maybe 20 seats left or something like that have not been paid for. There's probably been about 250 registrations for the 150 seats, but yeah, only about 20 seats are left. And so that's EnergyScienceConference.com. So I guess what we can do now is go ahead and open up for questions if anybody has any questions. Everybody is muted out right now, but if you're on this call and if you want to ask Geoffrey a question, just hit 5*, and I'll see a little flag come up next to your phone number, and then I'll go ahead and unmute you. And just say your name, where you're from, and go ahead and ask your question. So if you have a question, go ahead and hit 5*. Okay. Let's see. If your phone number is ending in 4343, you're unmuted. Go ahead and just a second here. Yeah, if your phone number ends in 4343, go ahead and say your name, where you're from, and go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, this is Jean Manning up in Kelowna, British Columbia. And,
hi, Jean.
Hi. And Geoffrey, I guess you were probably with Joe Newman about the time that I tried to contact him in the early 1990s, before the 1990s. and wrote to that address in, was it Louisville, Mississippi?
Louisville, Mississippi, yes.
Yeah, and never heard back. So I didn't write about him at all in a book that came out in '96. And then afterwards, somebody forwarded me an email where he was decided I was CIA because I didn't write about it. But maybe it's just as well that I didn't. I wish I had for a while, but now that I hear you talking about him as an educated person that knew more about Steinmetz, et cetera, than the engineers that came there, I may have just repeated the stereotype of the time, which was the backwoods inventor, with what the media was calling him, and I don't know how he felt about that. But I have a question about the footage for that film. Do you know if it included footage by Electra Briggs and Emery, her partner, filmed some of the action in Washington, D.C. when he was having his conflict over the patent?
Yes, all that's in that movie, and it'll be great. First of all, I want to thank you very much for all the books. I have your books and everything. I've always watched you at a distance and everything like that. I've seen you at conferences and everything. It just hasn't been the right time to have me come out and bring a lot of this technology out. And so I just want to thank you for actually waking everybody up in your own little way to put, as I say, female touch on this whole free energy thing. Because one of the things is with egos of some of these people in the free energy world, especially from, this new movie that's just dropped, so-called a bombshell, if you look at it, or a dud from like Stephen Greer's new movie that's just come out. I just love what you do. And so to answer your question, yes, there's a lot of footage in there. You are going to see probably the reason why there wasn't a callback from Lucille, Mississippi, is the fact that the way Joe got a little bit more money is that somebody came on his property actually looking for gold, found gold, and he sold off the land and everything, and that was how he was able to keep going with the money after he lost everything.
Oh, good. Glad to hear you had a stroke of luck there. Well, I look forward to meeting you, Jeff, and maybe I'll have a kind of historical photo or two to give to you of well, there was one.
That would be great. And you're
Coil at a conference in Germany back in the 80s. I could see if I can find that. Okay, thank you very much.
And I look forward to seeing you and talking further with you out there at the conference.
Great. Okay, bye for now.
Have a great day.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Gene. And Gene Manning is also going to be presenting together with Susan Manowick at the conference, and her website is breakthroughpower.net. She has the book Breakthrough Power, which documents a lot of the different breakthrough energy technologies, and she's been going to a lot of these conferences, and she knows more people in this field than probably anybody else.
Well, Aaron, actually Breakthrough Power is kind of out of print now. We're working on another one.
Right. Is that going to be ready by the conference?
No, it won't be ready by the conference, but we will just be finalizing it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Bye now.
Thanks. Let's see. Okay, if your phone number ends in 7439, I'm unmuting you right now. Go ahead and say your name, where you're from, and go ahead and ask your question.
G'day, boys and girls. Calling from Australia.
Hi, and what is your name?
John.
Patrick.
John? Oh, Patrick.
Patrick.
Welcome, Patrick.
Bit of a backseat Newman Motor enthusiast. Although that was quite a long time ago, I'm really curious, as I've seen his huge design that he used on the back of a trailer to pump water. And also his old one that used to go doink, 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 made out of what looked to be some sort of sewage runoff pipe. But they're the only two of the Newman motors I've seen. I didn't see what was inside that. Not quite sure what sort of big 4x4 it was, but something powered by a winch motor at about 3 miles an hour. But yes, the other gentleman's got some first-hand experience on some of Newman's geometry, or specifically what sort of size and shapes and information about what motors he was running at the time. I think that's really what I'm quite interested in.
Yes, that big gigantic motor was his last motor called Eureka, and he had a sump pump that basically had about 75 horsepower pump to actually run that if you used a regular motor. And so then he hooked up his motor to it, and it would go ahead and pump the water. And once you understood that, and you understood the power in versus the power out to actually run that motor, then you could understand what he did. What was interesting is the reason why he chose to use a pump was that when he first built that Eureka motor, he ended up putting a generator hooked up to it. And then he would do these parking lot demos where he had his motor running, he had the little batteries running his Newman motor, and then he had a generator there.
Right. How many was that?
The batteries all depended on how fast you wanted to run the motor. So generally, on that average motor, he had 5 to 600 volts running that, just to keep it going at about 1,000 RPM. And the key thing about it was is when he did these displays in parking lots, in the beginning he had a generator. Everybody thought that the motor was running off the generator. He invited everybody to bring their TVs or whatever devices to plug in the generator to try and load down his motor. So then he scrapped that idea because they weren't getting it. They kept on thinking that the generator was running his motor and these batteries had nothing to do with it. So he switched to a gigantic pump. And once he saw that gigantic pump work and everything, it was just incredible what it did.
Yeah, that Eureka thing did look mightily impressive. How long would it run for off those 9-volt batteries?
Well, he would just do it enough for the demos until, they told him to leave the parking lot. Because he'd usually get permission for like Walmart or Kmart or Home Depot, and he'd set up chairs and everything like that. But it was enough to show that it did what it did. I mean, when you're going ahead and you have 9
so they would batteries. Run down.
Huh?
So they would run down then, the batteries.
The batteries would slowly run down, more on a galvanic action. But the point was is that once you went ahead and did that, you could do a feedback loop, which he did once in a while. But remember, he was not very good at mechanically putting stuff together, and that's the thing. And once you understood he wasn't that good, that's why it baffles me even to this day that nobody actually came along from an engineering point of view and went ahead and said, here, let's do a back loop thing that once you start the batteries going, once the motor's going, then you can go ahead and just take a little bit out of a generator and then feed it back into the motor, and it'll work perfectly. You put capacitors in there as buffers and everything like that. It'll work absolutely perfect. So I have in my lab itself, I have probably I'm not going to tell you what happened to that motor. I'll save that for the conference. But let's put it this way.
Okay. Well, one other quick question then. Did you have any experience on any motors that he did other than what's commonly available in the videos?
The videos that are out on the YouTube videos?
Predominantly, yeah.
Yeah. I have 5 that I've built myself that are in the lab right now.
Right, okay. What would you say was the strong point? I mean, I know the big ones can be quite torquey.
Yeah, and the small ones can be torquey too, providing that you know what you're doing with the wire. It all comes down to the wire. I mean, to give you a case in point, I had a friend that went to one of the conferences he had way back in '96. I was there too. I just didn't know this friend that I know now and everything. And he basically had a little tiny motor running there, which was about foot by foot, and he had it hooked up to a capacitor and everything. He had an amp gauge on it and everything. That thing ran all day long. It just sat there all day long, and the amps were at 0. And so once you understand the technology, how it does it. Now, when you order the whole presentation at the end of Aaron's conference when he posts it, usually about a month later. You'll be able to have enough information to go and build yourself one from scratch.
Well, that's certainly an e-media press I'll be looking out for.
Yes.
What would you say, are they most suitable to be slotted into any particular industry now, or is it just really suitable for people with outback mining operations?
You could go ahead and put this almost into any industry depending on how you build it. One of the biggest things to go ahead and put it into is a diesel electric motive, a boat, anything big. You can go ahead and put these things, if you made about 15 of these in a row, you could put these into a warehouse and everything, and you can have a megawatt with no problem. It's just a matter of going
power
ahead.
Density is really the issue, though. If I was to ask you, if I was to get one final question out of your precious interview here, Aaron, optimistically speaking, what kind of power density could you get out of, say, for example, 1 cubic meter? Or whatever you feel comfortable with?
I would have to just run a number on that. But the way I look at it is this. If you build one unit the way I envision it being built, and then you put it up to a 50 kilowatt generator, that's the way I look at it. And you have a 50 kilowatt and then a 50 kilowatt and a 50 kilowatt. And then you have like a power purchase agreement or something like that, and you sell the power back into the grid, and then you have these things online 24/7. And remember, you have to. One of the things I have to get across to everybody, no matter who it is out there in the free energy world or anywhere, your number one thing is I work backwards. You have to have a need. And so if you have no need for that motor, and as I say, you ask first, how many people have ever made a regular motor? How many people have made like a little DC motor? And then how many people have made a one-phase motor? How many people have built a three-phase motor? So if you have no need for a motor yet and why you're doing it, then all this is going to do is replace those motors but be able to be more efficient and be able to sit here and run, pretty much as long as the bearings don't fall apart, And so it's more like your need. So,
are there any RF issues with the commutators?
What was that?
Well, you don't need a radio license or anything like that. They don't put out any nasty interference. So you have to Faraday cage them?
No. You don't have to do anything like that. The commutator is part of the whole overall Newman motor. And once I explain it and show you how easy it is to build and everything, then what happens is one of the big things about it is controlling, as Joseph Newman used to say, is controlling the lightning. And so when you interrupt the spark and you go ahead and the field collapses on the actual, wire, then what happens is all that energy has to go somewhere. So then it has to go into capacitors, and then you have to sit here. And I can get into that. I'll be getting into all that at the conference. But you don't need to put it in a Faraday cage or anything like that. Because you don't want any.
It would be fairly convenient, but you never know that sort of power generation scale level. Because otherwise, it is a very viable proposition for someone. Because other than the cost of the materials, and frankly, a not particularly well qualified engineer, I don't see a lot stopping you.
Yeah, as long as you have the money to build these things, you can build them big, build them small. They've been built small, and they're in the industry right now. You have to understand another thing, too. Joseph
Did you
Newman,
find round? Did you find round? There's one thing that's been nagging at me. I hope you'll forgive me for asking so abruptly, but Bedini did the window motor, which is sort of like a rectangle.
Completely different.
Did round ones?
The window motor is completely different. The Bedini motor is completely different. They're all different. The one commonality that they all have is coil wire. And that's why I say those trained in the art thereof, if you understand how to manipulate a coil wire, then you understand that you can do all kinds of fantastic things. And just remember, all your engineers at this point, what they do is any coil or anything that's happening on any board or anything that they do in the engineering world is they're putting it all to ground. They don't want that spike. They don't want all that extra energy, so they ground it all out or burn out their circuits. So if you know how to take that spike, you know how to manipulate it and everything, then you put it to use. And then you just have to understand, again, your need. Once you know what your need is, then you engineer backwards, and then you can make the actual, prototype and then take it into a pre-production unit and then a production unit.
Sure. I mean, if you can get rid of the RF, there's absolutely no problem with the production.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a bit tenuous having sort of up in the air, if you'll forgive the pun, RF floating around. So what geometry did Newman settle on by the end? Was he going sort of square or round? Or?
No, I taught him to go more like a rectangle. Because what you want is, in the beginning, he had a big giant coil, and then he put his magnet in the center, and it was big, so it would go around. So the big thing is I told him to go ahead and take the coil wire and stretch it out like in a rectangle, squeeze it real tight, and then take your magnets and put them on a shaft in the center, and then push it out and elongate it so that you can spin it faster. And that way you don't have a big giant centrifugal force thing going on it. And then you can always add a flywheel on there if you want more torque on the end of the motor.
Right, and I guess you're pretty well limited to 2,000 volts because of the wire breakdown insulation, or did Newman sort of upscale his wire a bit and try for a little higher?
No, you can. There are all kinds of ways to be able to get your voltage up there without having all that to, you'll understand it more in my talk. But there's a million ways to skin a cat, His whole idea, if you look at all his motors and everything that he's ever done, and even the ones that he put in cars and stuff, he was only showing the idea. And once he got to show the idea and everything, then he was hoping that industry would come along. And that was the sad part about it. He always used to ask me, he says, how come these people won't get behind me and everything? And I said, unfortunately, as like we have free will, I said, the Creator has free will too. And I said, there's a lot of stuff, we can keep batting our heads against the wall, but if something isn't meant to be out there, it won't get out there. And so I think the time's right because, like, Aaron's whole conference and everything, he's one of the last people right now that are able to put on any of these type of conferences, and that's the neat thing about it. He's kept it at 150 people, which is really good, But
there's still quite a few of them going on other than the ESM. I mean, granted, it's certainly one of the more popular ones out there, but I think the whole area is getting popularized with the advent of the internet and all the forums and whatnot. I hold quite a lot of hope that there'll be a lot of people not just doing this at home, but before long the demand will.
And one of the things, and that's why I'm coming out now is because I want to show people how to do it for the homes and the cars. That's the needs, the home and car.
I'd love to piggyback one off my solar panels for the feed-in, like you say.
Well, the way I'm doing it, you won't even need solar panels. I'm making solar panels obsolete.
Right, so you've got the ideal recipe, and that's being shared at the conference too, I hope.
Oh, I'll be sharing all kinds of things at the conference.
Okay. So have your main questions been answered, or we got a couple other people that have questions I'd like to get to, if that's okay?
Yeah, big smile. Let the inspiration continue. Please go ahead, Aaron.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Yeah, and after we get a couple more questions out there, Patrick, if you have any more questions, just hit 5-star again, and we can open it back up if we have time. No problem.
Will do, my friend.
Okay.
Okay,
thanks, Patrick. Okay, let's see. If you hear me unmuting you and lowering your hand, go ahead and introduce yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Good afternoon. This is Carl. Hi, Aaron. Hi, Geoffrey.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for providing this forum. This is wonderful. I had some questions because I've built several Bedini devices. I've built several Keppe motors, and I guess I've come to realize there's maybe at least 5 different types of electricity: AC, straight DC, pulse DC, negative electricity, cold electricity. And I wonder how these different types of electricity fit into, whether it be a Newman motor or a Bedini motor, and whether or not, if the coils in these motors were wound with steel instead of copper, how that would make a difference. And I guess I'm looking for publications that might explain some of this.
Okay, Carl. Basically, all 5 of those parameters you outline from the cold energy on back. At the end of the day, if you look at a tree and you have branches that go into the ground and you have branches that come out, and then you have the gigantic tree, we're just beginning to understand how to tap different avenues or branches of electricity. And when we start, or even in my own lab, when I start looking at the actual differences in the type of energy that each one of those names, that have been given it, is that they're completely different. And if we use each one independently of each other, then what happens is then you're going to have to build a device that's going to have to just run on that one type of particular energy. So if it's like cold energy or negative energy or impulse energy positive or impulse negative or straight DC or AC, each one of those things have their benefits and, bad things about them. But at the end of the day, we still have to run everything on 60 cycles, no matter what it is. And so what has to be done is, one, there's got to be devices that have to be measurable. So one of the things that EnergyBat Labs wants to do is be able to build equipment that will be able to identify that there's negative energy, identify that pulse DC, identify this and that. And one of the things I've been able to do is have a special device that can look into the battery and see what's going on. And that's one of the things I want to talk to people at the conference about. So you'll be able to see what's going on in the battery. And another device I want to build is a device that will be able to sense whether you have AC, DC, negative electricity, cold electricity, and those buzzwords. But at the same time, I want to be able to take those buzzwords and put them into electrical engineering terms. Because if you can't relate from an electrical engineering point of view these words that are slang amongst free energy users, it's one of the reasons why a lot of these people aren't going to be able to get any investment, because the people that want to invest money and everything are going to have to sit here and rely on engineers to be able to back up what somebody would say. And so to answer your question, I guess in a general sense, the different energies for Newman Motor, for any one of the motors that I've done, and Bedini, Geoffrey Motor, and all that, remember, all of it right now is still the electrical side. So when you go ahead and you look at wire that is copper, and then you go ahead and you look at iron wire, you're getting into that magnetic energy. So if you're going to use magnetic energy, like I said earlier in the talk, you're going to have to be able to sit there and put a device together that's going to be able to capture magnetic energy and telluric currents, because that's what's really in the ground. And so then when you go to copper and everything, then you'll get more of the electrical side to it. When you get the electrical side, it will run your electrical devices. Then you're going to have to build an interface, take the magnetic energy and turn it back in so that you can run it into your, AC, device. And so there's a lot of things that have to go that way. So the key thing is to be able to get the magnetic energy out of the earth. It's already there. And then make an interface box that then can go ahead and turn it into regular dull-looking AC that, everybody actually runs. So I hope I answered your question.
No, that was great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any books or publications that you recommend to people like us when we're trying to understand some of this?
Yeah, probably
a lot out there.
Yeah. The number one books that I always recommend if you're going to start to really understand where all this energy stuff has come from are the books that Tesla wrote himself. All other books, and I'm going to repeat it, all other books written by Tesla are a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. So, yes, they're intriguing, and, yes, when you pick them up, they're there. But always go to the book that he wrote. And it's one of the reasons why that I went ahead and went and did all the experiments, and the number one book that he wrote and left behind for everybody was his Colorado Springs book. But you have to understand that that was another time, and he was dealing with wire. And if you're not into just dealing with wire, dealing with capacitors, and dealing with spark gaps and everything, what you're going to have to be able to realize is that if you have that technology and you have it in your lab and you're sitting by your computer and you do things wrong, well, you will fry your computer. You will smoke your, anything of these digital stuff. One of the reasons why I love Eric Dollard's position on all those things, like silly phones, maggot pods, it is true, because what you're going to have to do is be able to take that energy and be able to make it so that it doesn't go into anything that we have today that we use on a common basis. So I would say the number one book to read is the Colorado Springs, but it's very technical. The other books that he has written more so are less technical, but at least you're getting it from the horse's mouth. All these other books that are written on Tesla, I look at it this way. If you take a nice little picture and you put it down on a copier, and then you make a copy of a copy of a copy, pretty soon you just have a black on the picture. And that's what's happened. And I've just read the last 2 or 3 books on Tesla and everything, and they're just copies of copies of copies. They have some intriguing stuff and everything, and half the stuff is wrong. That's what I don't like. Then they're there to sell books.
Okay. That explains it. Thank you.
Okay. Have a great day, Carl.
Thanks,
Carl. Hey, Geoffrey, do you have any comment on, I don't know if it's Leland Anderson maybe, the books that have the compilation where Tesla was deposed in court and had to give some testimony, and it was pretty much in layman's terms. He was kind of forced to explain a lot of things in common language?
Yes. One of the things I have is I have a huge network of people around the country and 1 or 2 people on other sides of the globe. And the neat thing was I was able to meet Leland twice at this guy's lab and everything, and we worked. He showed us all kinds of rare photos and everything like that, and all those photos are out there and stuff. But yeah, one of those books are very, very valuable. It's when he was deposed by the lawyers and everything. And the key thing about it is that one of the hard things that everybody wants is that they want to go ahead and build something in 5 minutes. And you can't do that. You've got to put blood into this game. And I mean blood. And so at the end of the day, you have to build the devices. If you say, well, I can't build anything, well, then find somebody that's going to build something. And when they say, well, I have to spend some money, I say, well, then do without your lattes. Do without, going into a concert. Do it without. It depends on how much you really want something. And so if you really want to understand the technology and you want to build it and you want to have it in your possession, then you have to go ahead and build it. And it's one of the reasons why, Bedini, he was a good builder, and Newman, he was not a good builder. And I think Bedini understood less in certain areas, whereas Newman understood more. Newman was more an intellect, and Bedini was more of a builder. So if you take those two together, then you can really go forward. But both have contributed to everybody having the knowledge, and the knowledge is out there. And just like in Peter Lindeman's last talk and everything, in showing the Bedini wheel that he did and everything with Tom and you guys, all people have to do is understand it and then be able to go ahead and build it. Now, the sad part about building anymore is right now, look at Radio Shacks. All Radio Shacks they're shutting down. And they're not shutting down because they're not selling anything. They're shutting down because nobody's building anything. And so we're getting to a point where everything, you look at the new pieces of electronics anymore, surface mount this, pieces that you need magnifying glasses, and pretty soon you're going to need a microscope to look at anymore. So I'm trying to keep it, all my devices I have in this lab are built with nothing. As I call it, Home Depot junk. Because once it works with junk, then you can go ahead and commercialize it. And one of the things I want to let everybody know out there in Free Energyville is that I want to license the technologies. And there are 3 things I'll be bringing to the conference. One, I will be bringing a special magnetic impulse charging unit that will basically eliminate the need to build a SEG. It replaces the whole thing. The second thing I'm bringing a special battery rotating board that will complement anybody that has made an SEG. And the third thing I'll be bringing there is I'll be bringing a special relay board that interfaces with that. And then when you take all 3 of those boards together, then you can go ahead and build anything that will be able to run your house on down. And so I'll be talking about that out there at the conference too. Because that's the bottom line. You've got to make this stuff into a product that people can use. And so that's it for that talk.
Okay. Let's see. We have somebody that has a question. If your number is ending in 7081, you're unmuted. Go ahead and introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hi, my name's Tom, and I'm from Temple, Texas. Hi. I sure appreciate what you guys are doing. Looking forward to going to the conference and seeing you guys.
Right.
I went to one of the earlier conferences. I think it was the first conference that John Bedini went to. I think I got the first signed book at the conference there years ago. And I'm just wondering what size would a Joseph Newman unit have to be approximately in order to power a house?
Remember that it's a motor. It never
yes, sir.
That. So,
right. So you need a generator. You need to run it.
You just put a generator on there. Now the generator can work on any level. So it depends on the motor. So an average generator, if you just have a regular generator, it's 10,000 watts or whatever and everything, you're looking at 20 horsepower. So you have to have the motor at least be able to make about 20 to 30 horsepower. And then the big thing about it is that today's generators, unless you get the right ones and you get them from Germany or something like that, most of your regular generators are built really not to run 100% 24/7. So that's where I come in, because there's other ways to be able to skin the cat and put together a motor within the Newman way of doing things, and then I've made the Newman motor so that you can actually have generating coils within it, so that you can actually have the motor do as a motoring effect and be a generator at the same time.
Do you know about how big that would have to be to power one house with all the needed items?
Depends on the wire and depends on the magnets you put into it.
I see. Now, if you're looking at about 30 horsepower, any approximate sizes? It's probably going to be pretty heavy, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, just remember one thing. When you think about any generator, a rule of thumb is if it weighs at least 125 pounds, you've got enough wire on there to be able to do something. And that's generally a 10,000-watt generator if it's, pretty good, not some of the cheap crap that you can buy out there that's missing a few, wire. And a perfect example is if you look at all one-phase motors and everything, they've got like little clutches in there. They've got gigantic capacitors and everything. And that's all to make up for the fact that there's no wire in the damn motor. I have two grinders that I turn on, and I've had them for years, and they take like 35 minutes to stop. and they instantly go up because they have wire, and they were built in the 40s.
No.
Yeah.
So we're probably looking at a couple 100-pound assembly to run a house then.
Yeah. Then you put it in a square thing. It'll be, I would suspect, done right and everything, you can have the whole thing looking like an average, Generac built thing, 2 feet up, 3 feet long, 2 feet in depth.
That's
or like
not bad at all.
Yeah. But all that has to be shown, and one of the reasons what I want to be able to do is bring out this technology and license it to people that will be able to do it. And once I show them how to do it, then they can go and build it. I mean, I don't want to build, anything after that because it is an R&D lab. And so the big thing about that is to be able to have licenses and give it to people that want to go ahead and build it and make, whatever they want to make, motors all day long or whatever.
That'd be great.
I was going to say the perfect way to envision it, you take a boat, you put a gigantic ship together. You can use the Newman motor and use all the weight of the wire and everything hooked up to the props and everything and a gear mechanism to spin the props and stuff. And you can actually use the weight of the props to be ballast for the actual boat itself.
So use the motor to keep the boat upright is what you're saying, right?
Yeah,
the weight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. So if you're looking to build something to say power a car down the road, you're probably looking at a pretty heavy assembly, right?
No, the way we do the power in the car, you have Elon Musk's car. He's got batteries and everything. You poke them, they blow up and everything. That's no, what you want to be able to do is get away from the battery idea and be able to have a generator on board that's able to supply the energy to about 4 wheels in a car that then you can go ahead and drive continuously. And that's what we're working on.
Wow. What was the weight of a unit?
Batteries. Huh?
What would the weight of a unit to power a car, say, if you were to power, say, a 3/4 ton pickup truck? I know I saw the one that Joseph Newman was using was huge, and it wasn't going very fast. I'm sure you could.
That motor.
Sorry.
You saw the black F-150, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the black F-150. What he did, he drilled a hole or he cut a part out in the back of the truck. He had his motor in the back of the truck, and he went ahead and put a belt onto the shaft of the actual truck itself, on the drive shaft. And then he used the batteries up front to actually run the whole thing.
I see. So it wasn't geared optimally it could have probably gone a lot faster if he'd geared it.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, he was not a builder. He was not a person. Once you understand that, it's one of the reasons why everybody yells and screams like, well, why didn't you do this or that right or anything like that? He just wasn't a builder like that. And so he did the best that he could. But the point was if it's working with pieces of junk and it's barely hanging on, that's the most important thing. After that, you put engineers to it, then the engineers can go ahead and push it along like a millionfold.
Yeah, that's right. That sounds great.
At the end of the day, it's like John Bedini. The one thing he tried to get across, since he was more in the limelight and talking more than Joseph Newman, is he wanted to show you the technology. Once you understood, it's one of the reasons why he didn't get onto the forums and stuff. He just had it. He says, here, I'm giving you the information. If you're bright enough to understand that information, then go ahead and build it. And so what I'm going to do is dumb it down even further so everybody, because I look at people as like little children, and then as long as you show a little child how to do something very quickly, then they'll get it in seconds. And that's the key thing, to be able to do it. And that's why when you come to the conference, you'll be able to actually see that when I show it, And by the end of the whole entire conference, when you order the tape or, when it's up available again, there'll also be a PDF file in there. Then you'll see all 150 of the slides. And within the slides, you're going to be able to understand certain things to be able to build this thing. Everybody at the conference will be able to walk away 110% and build this thing. All it takes is a little bit of money to be able to do it. If you're willing to spend it, that's it. And that's
great.
A beautiful thing. Because what I'm going to get from this is this is a gigantic experiment for me. I want to see that when I make this crystal clear to everybody, that they're able to sit here and build this thing, and then they can show other people to build it, and then they can show other people to build it. This is going to mushroom like no tomorrow, because it's not that hard to build. And the minute they do it, can you imagine the experiments that all these people are going to start doing? They're going to be way past, you've got millions and millions of people who will be able to do this. And the only way you can do it is to show it to everybody, get it out there. And that's why.
You'll change the world paradigm right there.
Oh, I plan to. The world right now is in a hellhole, and I plan to change it big time. You have no idea how fast this is going to happen.
That sounds great. Now, with Newman's Motors, he was using copper coils, right?
Yes.
And was he using, like, number 20 wire, or I guess it would depend on which one he was building?
His original coil used number 5. And
oh, wow.
But the sad part was when I went into a shop and everything, I came in there, and he had no money left, and he had to cut off all the wire to sell it for scrap. Can you imagine selling wire for scrap back in 1996 compared to
no.
Yes.
Oh, do you know what he had on the big Eureka? Was that also number 5?
No, I think what the hell is it? Off my head. I got to look that up. I actually have it written down.
Oh, do you think I've been stocking up on number 20 just for a similar project, but I don't know if that's big enough.
Yeah, it's not about the bigness of the wire. It's about how long the wire is.
Right.
Yeah.
But the smaller the wire, the higher the resistance. The larger the wire, the less the resistance. So the longer you can make the wire, and with the same amount of power, you can get more magnetic flux. So I guess you'll probably get into all that too, right?
Oh, yeah. One of the things that was kind of neat is when we were there, one thing he told me about was what he used to do is he'd sit there to show you the collapsing of the coil on his big coil, his original one. They would put batteries, and then when he would have the back spike, he wouldn't put the capacitors to absorb the energy, so he'd put a capacitor, he'd put the spark into a regular car battery that was like 1,000 amp hours and blow the battery completely apart.
Yeah, you were telling me, or I was listening to your interview with Alan on EnergyBat Labs when you were talking about how Newman you guys would laugh, you'd blow up batteries and you put them in big 55-gallon barrels and blow them up, I think it was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Boy, Sterling's in a new little world now.
Yikes. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I sure appreciate you guys doing this, and I'm sure looking forward to seeing you at the conference. I'd really like to know your secrets. I'd like to pick your brain right now. Thank you so much.
Well, let other people talk if there are any more out there, and I'll be glad to talk to you out there. Believe me, we'll sell here and be able to talk all day long.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Well, sure is good talking to you, Geoffrey, and thank you, Aaron. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Okay. Have a great day.
Hey, Geoffrey, I got actually 2 questions. The person who had the YouTube video that seemed to have built the Newman motor right, is that somebody who worked with Newman? Or
No. He just absolutely sort of understood. He read the book. One of the things about it is that Newman made basically about, 1, 2, 3 books were issued at the end, the last book, the reason why it never got popular and everything is the fact that all of a sudden his whole, the book plate where they did the printing and everything burnt to the ground. And the guy, Evan Soule, which was his personal like manager or whatever and everything, he called me up and he said, we don't have any more books. And Joe doesn't even have more books and everything. And they actually wanted that book, you know, if I would donate it and everything like that. And I knew that, and I literally said, no, I can't. I said, you got to try and ask somebody else, but I can't let this book go. And, you know.
Well, that goes to that's actually my second question is, what is the name of his book? I can't remember what it is. And then he had a couple different versions or editions of it. Is there one that you would recommend more than the others? Is it whatever the newest one is, or is the original one, the first one, better because it may have stuff that was later taken out, or what's your perspective on the books?
Yes, the original one is the Joseph Newman, you know, machine, Joseph Newman Motor, and he sold over 500,000 copies worldwide. And the big thing about it is the companies that bought this, they knew exactly when they read this. I guarantee you, there were people in R&D shops. It was like, you know, General Electric and people like that. And they said, do you want your job there, Johnny? You're not working on this. And so, yes, it would be his original book. And the thing about what I've seen on the Internet is that somebody had scanned, or a couple people have scanned his book sort of in there. And the thing is that it's left out a lot of things within that book. And so unless you actually get the physical book in your hand and read it, because the book has about 3 parts to it. It has the part about basically the motor. It has the part about his theory of the motor and everything. And then it has the affidavits of over 40 or 50 people from the most high-level things from NASA on down that have signed off that this worked. And not only that, he was, I don't know if people in the audience even know who Johnny Carson was, but he was one of the best talk show hosts in the world. And he was on the Johnny Carson show, and it had the highest ratings of any TV show ever.
Yeah, I saw that Johnny Carson clip.
Yes. Yep.
So now
the question is, his first book, read it, and then everything's in there to understand it. Now, the problem is, even with the first book, if you're not adept to be able to make what's actually in that book, then you're not going to be able to really understand it. And that's what I mean by the fact that I've only seen one person actually do this thing right, because they read the book, they interpreted what was in the book, and then they were able to sit there and actually make the unit the correct way.
Okay. Do you know if that first edition, if there are any, because I did come across a handful of different versions and different PDFs that people have scanned and put online. Have you come across any of the first editions that were scanned in that was complete?
I haven't actually gone through every single one that I have to really see it. I just knew that when I went through about 2 of them, I immediately saw they didn't scan everything in there. But basically, to be able to make the motor and everything like that will be from the beginning of the book, probably 1/3. After the 1/3 of the book and everything, the rest of the book is just affidavits and his future thinking on things and stuff like that. The second edition, the third edition and everything, he started to turn to, as they say, God. He was always interested in God and everything like that. But I think when you realize that he went through, lost his wife, he went through his kids, everything like that. He lost everything. Everything was to get this information out there. So then he turned more and more to God. And so then after that, there was a lot more God into the books. And so people would sit there and say, well, okay, that's fine. That's religion, but what's that got to do with the science or the motor and everything? But like I said, when he wrote it up and everything, he did the best that he could. Like I said, if you're not a builder, it's one thing to be a theoretician, sort of like sitting there and reading a electrical schematic. If you're not trained in the art of reading electrical schematics, and then you go ahead and do it like a wiring diagram, the best thing is for most average people would be the wiring diagram because they can't speak that language that's electrical schematic language. And so he didn't put it in more of a wiring diagram. He put it in more of like being able to sit there and show how and his theory and everything like that. And so then you have to sort of pick in between everything. But because I'm very good at doing that, I can look at something. And so books to me these days, I just literally pick, like, I'll read a book, and it's only one or two little things I get out of it anymore. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, it's about 2:22. We've been on here for about getting close to an hour and a half. If there's no more questions from anybody online, we can go ahead and get it wrapped up. If you do want to ask a question, we have time for maybe one or two more. Hit 5-star, and then I can unmute you if you want to ask a question. Otherwise, we can go ahead and get it wrapped up. Yeah, just hit 5-star if you have a question. And so, again, I want to mention Geoffrey's website, which is for EnergyBat Labs, which is EnergyBat.com. It's EnergyBat.com, and I'll have a subtitle for that on the or I'll put your banner on the video once I put this up on YouTube. And then also July 7, 8, 9, we have the Energy Science and Technology Conference. Out of 150 seats, there's only maybe about 20 or so left. And so if you do want to come to that, go to EnergyScienceConference.com. You can register and get your ticket there. And all the presentations from the conference will be eventually available at emediapress.com. It's just the letter E and mediapress.com. And do you have anything else you want to add, Geoffrey, before we end the call?
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to be able to do is give you just a tidbit of one area that huge amount of money and huge amount of time people have put into this person, and I've met him, and I dealt with him, and I worked with him, is the one thing, and this is going to blow a lot of people's minds when I say what I'm about to say, but I have to say it now. I worked with John Searle, and I'm going to say it now, that his device, he did not build 68 devices that flew. And we can have a whole conference on that alone. I just want to put that out there for something for the future. And I want to thank everybody out there. I look forward to meeting the people that are going to come to the conference. And if people can help me donate, the more and more they donate towards keeping, basically it keeps the lights on the building. Everything else I have in here, it took me a year to move in here, 500 tons worth of equipment and everything. And so I want to get all this information out to people. So if it wasn't for the people going out there, there's no reason for me to show to anything, because then I can just die and keep all this stuff inside me. I don't want to do that. I didn't work this long to just keep it inside me, so I want to show it. But I just wanted to share that with the Searle thing, and I can name a million other people about it that I've worked with. And so I have a full range, behind-the-scene type of people that have done their, and I've done their, how should I put it, their equipment. I've made it and everything. And one of the things I did way back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s is I went and met these people. Unlike today, everybody goes through the internet. The internet basically is like a trash dump. You put everything out there, and you got to beware of what trash can you're looking in. But at the end of the day, I met all these people, and I just called them up and talked to them. I went to see their stuff. So I just want to thank you, Aaron, and thank the people. And if anybody wants to ask another question or two, let's do it.
Okay. And so on EnergyBat.com, is there a PayPal donate link people can click on if they want to donate to your work?
Yes. And I also charge for a 2-day visit at the lab and everything, and then you get to see everything that's here at the lab. And I have over 100 different devices at the lab, and even more that are half done and ready to go. It's one of the things at the lab that I had to do is that people say, well, why did you build all this stuff? I said, I'm building it to show the overall principle that if you know how to manipulate wire and magnets, then you change the configuration, the geometric configuration, and you will change the outcome of what you're getting.
And is your contact information on your website as well?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so it doesn't look like anybody else has a question here, so I guess we can go ahead and wrap it up. Jeffrey, I appreciate your time and for everything you shared on this call, and looking forward to meeting you in person at the conference. And for everybody else who's been on this call, thanks for joining us, and I'll have this on YouTube up maybe by the end of the week. And so I guess with that, have a good day, everybody. Thanks a lot, Jeffrey. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, Aaron. Thanks, everybody else.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you guys.
For our room right now. So I really have just reinvented everything, have this new lab. And so, again, it's EnergyBat.com, and if you go there, I'm going to be updating it pretty soon for the conference. So there'll be a whole new group of photos and everything. But you'll get an idea of what I do and what I'm all about by going there.
And that's BAT, B-A-T, just like the black flying mammal bird.
Yeah.
Not bird, but
EnergyBat.com.
Okay, and I'll put a subtitle to that domain name in the video when we put it up on YouTube. And so, one question I had is, or not necessarily a question, but just something to bring up, is that over the years, Joseph Newman is, obviously one of the pioneers in the whole, so-called free energy movement, and has been around for decades. And, he's been in this a long time. A lot of people don't know he's the one that invented those little those weights that go on weightlifting sets, like in the little plastic, the little like red ones or gold ones that are filled with some type of concrete or some type of heavy stuff in there, and he's the one that invented those. And then I guess he sold the patent, and that kind of funded him to be able to get into his energy research. And, there's a lot of different things he's been working on over the years, but it seems like he pretty much kind of kept on the same track with his school of thought. And a lot of people that have met Joseph Newman, knows about his work, read his book, has been inspired by his work. And a lot of people have tried to replicate some of his motors. And there's a lot of websites out there and a lot of videos on YouTube and elsewhere online where people are showing the replication. But the reality is based on your experience with Joseph Newman and knowing more about what the inside scoop is, you said out of everything that anybody has ever put on the internet. This is Aaron Murakami with A&P Electronic Media, and today is May 11th, 2017, and it's about 1 o'clock Pacific time. And today on the call we're going to have Mr. Geoffrey Miller from EnergyBat Labs. And if you saw in the newsletters and any of the information on some of the upcoming conference here in July 2017, Energy Science and Technology Conference, he's going to be sharing some information on Joseph Newman's work that not really many people are familiar with. He's one of the few people who's ever gained the trust of Joseph Newman, and back in the 80s he worked with him for about 10 years. And Geoffrey Miller has a pretty impressive lab called EnergyBat Labs. And today on the call, we're going to share a little bit about his background, some of the stuff he's working on at his lab, and some of the exciting things he's going to be releasing here in the near future. So can you hear me okay, Jeffrey?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay. Well, thanks for your time and for being on the call with us today. And, originally I had heard about you, I believe, through Mike Waters and Paul Babcock, and they've both known you for a while. And actually last year when I was looking to get the speakers lined up for last year's conference. We had already kind of been booked up, but you were definitely recommended to me. And then, since the end of last conference, learning more about your work, that you've probably worked with Joseph Newman longer than most people, which must have been a pretty incredible experience. Do you want to kind of give a little bit about your background and how you got into a lot of the energy technologies and just kind of give people kind of a frame of reference of where you're coming from?
Yes, so I want to thank you, Aaron, for having me on. I want to thank the audience out there. I'm looking forward to presenting this all in a logical manner and also in a level that people can actually understand, basically like little children, because if you apply that information more on their childlike brain, so to speak, they get it quickly instead of taking it all the way up to the level of engineering and everything like that. So let me fill in the background of what I've done. When I was basically 5, my grandfather was rehabbing houses at the time. And what he did is he introduced me to electricity then. So at 5 and 6 years old, I was actually playing around and redoing light fixtures. We were doing arc lamps. We were doing arc lamps and experiments on this table and everything. I'd be able to go to some of the neatest places that had electronic equipment. So I was born in 1958, so basically I'm almost 60. And so he also took me to the libraries and everything. So I was reading Tesla and everything around 5, 6, 7, 8. And so it was kind of neat to actually learn all that stuff very early. And basically I was hooked at that point. Then what I did is I fast-tracked myself. I used to hang out and take classes at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia. I'm outside of Philadelphia in suburbs. And I also went ahead and would go to the Free Library, and then I would go down to Washington Library, and I would read books down there, and I'd go up to New York and everything. And so all that time I'd be reading and doing my own experiments. I had my own little labs then and everything like that. So I've had little labs leading all the way up to a big lab. I've done all of Bedini's work, all of Joseph Newman's work, all of everybody's work. So the best way to ask me any questions is just ask me direct questions. I'm a very open person, probably more so than most people like me to be open. And so just ask me questions, and I'll answer anything you want to know.
Now, hey, Geoffrey, you want to give what your website address is so that people can go there after the call and kind of see some of the photo gallery of a lot of the machines that you've built? I mean, it's a pretty impressive lab. There's a lot of stuff there.
Oh, yeah. It's called EnergyBat.com. And when you go there, you'll see a home page, about page, a photo gallery page, video gallery page, project page, donation, news, and contact. And when you go to the projects, you'll see them. And this website was all done because what happened is that when I worked on a project called the Pull-Out. The Pull-Out is a mobile utility toolbox that goes in the back of a pickup truck. In 2008, we were supposed to have 14,000 units put into Home Depot and Lowe's, and the investors pulled out when the economy collapsed. So that project is still an ongoing project, but the reason why the whole toolbox project began was so that I could put the Newman Motor in there as a generating unit and have a free energy unit that's portable and can go anywhere. And so if you go to mobileutilitytoolbox.com, you'll see the whole Pull-Out project, or you can go to the project page in EnergyBat page and you go to number 6 on the list of projects, and you can hit Mobile Utility Toolbox. So when that went defunct, I lost everything, trucks, everything in my apartment, everything. So I'm living in the graces of somebody's upper. And so in between all that time, I've done everything. I've been a blacksmith. I've built race cars. You name it, I've built it. And so now what I've done is I have watched and worked on free energy stuff for probably a good part of about 40 years. And so I've studied everybody else's projects out there. I've duplicated their stuff, and I've taken it further than even the original people. And so what I like to be able to do for the Newman thing is, number one, he's passed on, but I'd like to be able to present his knowledge in a manner so that people can actually understand it and actually really get to go ahead and build it the correct way, because that's what Joseph Newman really would like to have. So that's pretty much where it is. And then what I did in the last year, I had somebody offer to move me out of a small lab and into basically a 5,000 square foot lab that's costing a fortune right now. At the same time, I'm not married. I have a friend that I've been with for about 40 years, and technically, officially, I'm homeless. And so I'm almost like Aristotle. But at the same time, I have a lot of good people around me and everything, and I want to get all this information out in one way, free. Since there's nothing free in the overhead, I would like to have people help me with a donation to keep the lab up. If that goes, then I give out all the information for free. And there is so much I can give out. So at that point, that's where I'm at right now with this new lab and everything. And I have close to 100 different working models here of various levels.